Representative Rouson in debate.
Goodness. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I wasn't quite ready.
Never mind. Just kidding. You're
Thank you very much for that, too. Like many of my colleagues, I've thought about this. And I've heard people suggest that the budget reflects who you are. In fact, I think one of our members says today that our vote on this defines who you are. I'm not sure I agree with that. No more so than you graduate from Duke or Harvard or UF or FSU defines who you are. What defines who you are is what you do with the knowledge and the education and the experience of life that you've acquired. I've voted both ways on this budget. In fact, there was a period of time in '06 and '07 when this budget passed out 119 to nothing, 116 to 4. And then during lean years, one side of the aisle locked down because they didn't feel included. But in the last couple of years on this budget, I've seen a shift towards what I would call, Representative Lee, hope and inclusion. See, I have to be, to an extent, the eternal optimist. And I remember in my vote today that I did work on this budget. See, I asked the Speaker and I asked Chair Corcoran, don't throw me no bones. People can't eat bones. You know, give me a seat at the table of conference where the meat was going to get carved up. And the M for meat stood for Medicare expansion. I believe in that. I stand for that. My district wants that. When I think about Midtown and St. Pete and Pinellas County being the largest pocket of poverty and group of uninsured people, and I think about Samoet and Tillman and Memphis area of Manatee, and I think about Newtown down in Sarasota and the Ruskin area of Hillsborough County, the people are screaming for health care access. There's enough in this budget to vote against it, but I'm standing up for this budget today because there's 90 days coming. 90 days. And I'm hopeful that when we get back, we're going to be able to work on some areas of this budget that some of my colleagues are complaining about. But we've done some good things. In fact, I'm proud to say today that last year we gave Department of Corrections only $5 million to put a crack in what was an $85 million need or a $300 million need over 5 years. But this year we've doubled it. We're starting to attack blind spots. We're going to hold accountable Rouson and Wexford on their health care of inmates. I wished we had given all government workers a raise. But in our charge, under our charge in our time, we did the best that we could with this budget, but there's more work to be done. And I felt like I had a seat. I felt like some of my colleagues had a seat. I saw them walking the appropriations suite. There was an opportunity for inclusion in this budget. Should we have acquired more lands with some dollars? Yes. But is there still opportunity? Yes. And that's why I'm reflecting it in my support of this budget. And before I sit down, let me just say that, Mr. Speaker, I'm very grateful. I'm proud to support this budget for all kinds of reasons, not the least of which is your generosity and your kindness. Now, I didn't get everything I asked for, but for years I have fought for the opportunity to motivate and stimulate people to perform public service on the King holiday. And on behalf of my siblings, Dr. Damian, Rouson, Lizette, Bridget, and Janine, I thank you, members and Mr. Speaker. I am not the man that my father was. He was of impeccable character and reputation. He was a community college man who believed in community engagement. He literally lived to be a community college president and died on the campus of Palm Beach State College after suffering a massive heart attack in May of 1979. He met my mother, the late Vivian Rouson, at Xavier University in New Orleans, and after a short stint at MacDill Air Force Base, we settled in St. Petersburg. He coached basketball and was chief of guidance counseling at the segregated Gibbs Junior College and was recently inducted into the Gibbs Junior College Hall of Fame. And after integration, he transferred to St. Petersburg College, the Clearwater campus, where he was director of student campus life and began his doctoral studies. And for his dissertation, he studied the information of St. Pete Junior College second-year black students on their expressed interests in vocations, and that was published in 1972 at Florida State University, where he got his PhD. He was a scoutmaster. He coached basketball at Immaculate Conception Catholic School and was engaged in the community by serving on various boards and councils, and he was secretary of the NAACP of St. Pete and the founding member of Ada Row graduate chapter of Omega Psi Phi fraternity in St. Petersburg. He wanted to be president of St. Pete College. And he ran against the man who ultimately won, Dr. Cutler. And at the time of his death, he was vice president of student affairs at Palm Beach Junior College. And I'm honored to stand on the floor of this house and acknowledge you, Mr. Speaker, and your thought in offering his name to carry on public service at St. Pete College. And I'll never forget the goosebumps that I had when Matt Hudson stood on this floor and talked about Ed and Ethel Moore and what it means and what it meant to him to honor his grandparents through an Alzheimer's Institute. And my daddy believed in community service. I inherited that from him. And as a part of this budget, we're naming the Dr. W. Irvin Rouson Day on Service at St. Pete College, and I thank you for that. So I was already going to vote for this budget. And when the Tampa Bay Times asked me, did that have any influence on your vote, I said, well, Shirley Chisholm said unbought and unbossed. You can't buy the vote for that. But you certainly make me prouder of the vote that I was going to give. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Rouson, you were my first seatmate in the Florida House. As a redshirt freshman, we've come a long way. Well done.